Part 1. The Arrival. Welcome to Hollow Village. The van rattled over the cracked dirt road, jostling the 10 passengers inside. Laughter echoed as backpacks bounced, and someone's Bluetooth speaker blared indie rock into the musty air. The group was a mix of university friends and old classmates, brought together by a spontaneous plan: escape the city, go off the grid, and discover something real. "I told you this would be fun," Claire said from the front seat, twisting around to grin at the others. Her auburn hair was pulled into a tight ponytail, freckles scattered across her sunburned cheeks. "Fun?" groaned Marcus, already pale from car sickness. "This road hasn't been paved since the war." "It's not even on the map," said Ethan, his voice low and calm. He sat in the back, reading a worn travel journal. "That's what makes it interesting." "Or cursed," muttered Jenna from beside him. The van lurched to a stop. The driver, a quiet local man who'd barely spoken during the journey, turned off the ignition and pointed ahead. "No road after this," he said, finally. "Village is through there. Half-hour walk." "Wait, you're not coming?" Claire asked. The man shook his head. "I don't go in Hollow Village." Ethan looked up. "Did you say Hollow Village?" The man didn't answer. He simply got out, retrieved their bags, and placed them in the grass. Then he got back in the van and turned around without another word. Silence settled over the group. "Well, that's not ominous," said Brandon, shouldering his camera. "Let's go." The village. The trail into the forest was overgrown, and the trees loomed tightly overhead, dimming the sunlight into a constant dusk. No birds chirped, no wind stirred. It was deathly still. "Guys," said Megan, hugging herself, "this feels wrong." "Come on," said Claire, leading the way. "It's just isolated. That's what we wanted, right? Nature. No cell service, no crowds." And then, after nearly 40 minutes of silent walking, the trees broke, and there it was. Hollow Village. It was smaller than they'd imagined. Maybe 20 wooden houses, all weathered and gray, clustered around a dry stone well. A broken chapel stood crookedly at the far end. There were no cars, no signs of life, until they saw the people. They stood still, watching, silent. Men and women of all ages, dressed in threadbare clothes, their skin ashen and eyes unnervingly hollow. No one smiled, no one waved. The group froze. Then a tall woman in a black shawl stepped forward. "You've arrived," she said, voice flat. "Welcome, you may stay at the inn." Without another word, she turned and walked toward a sagging building near the well. Claire glanced around. "Okay, maybe they're just shy?" "Shy? Or dead inside," muttered Jenna. But with the van long gone and the sun starting to dip behind the hills, they had little choice. They followed. The inn. The inn was dusty and cold inside, its wooden floor groaning with every step. There were no modern appliances, only oil lamps and heavy curtains that shut out what little light remained. Each friend was given a room, all on the second floor. No keys, just heavy wooden doors. Dinner was served in silence by an old woman with one eye. It was stew, gray and thick and stale bread. No one asked what meat it was. No one dared. As night fell, the wind howled through the cracks in the walls. One by one, the friends went to their rooms. The hall was long, dark, and lined with old portraits. The faces in the paintings seemed to follow them. Ethan couldn't sleep. There was a scratching in his walls, a low, rhythmic sound like nails dragging slowly. He got up and pressed his ear against the wood. Scratch, scratch, then a whisper, so faint he barely heard it. 10 to enter, none to leave. He jerked back. Something was wrong. Very wrong. Disappearances. The next morning they found Derek's bed empty. Maybe he went for a walk, Claire suggested, though her voice was tight. But his shoes were still in the room, his backpack, his coat. Then they found a trail of muddy footprints outside his window, leading into the woods. Just one pair. No return. "Okay, this is getting creepy," Brandon muttered. By midday, Lena went missing too. She'd gone to use the shared bathroom down the hall. Never came back. They searched every corner of the inn. Nothing. Only a damp handprint on the mirror and the words "She's taken" scratched into the glass. They tried to leave, but when they followed the path out of the village, it looped. They walked for hours and ended up back at the well. That's when panic set in. Marcus was the first to lose it, screaming at the villagers, demanding answers. The old woman only smiled. "The Hollow One is pleased," she said. They locked themselves inside the inn that night, pushing furniture against the doors. Ethan stayed awake, journal in hand. He wrote down every detail. The scratching returned, closer this time. Then a soft knock at the window. He looked. It was Lena, but her eyes were all black, her mouth sewn shut. She stood barefoot in the snow, smiling. Then she vanished. The ritual. Ethan found a book hidden in the chapel the next day, a leather-bound volume titled Offerings to the Hollow One. It was in Old English, pages yellowed with age. He read aloud to Claire, open quote, 10 souls must enter the veil. The offering must be complete before the rising of the third sun. The chosen will be taken, one by one, until balance is restored. Close quote. Claire's voice trembled. So we're not guests. We're sacrifices. They gathered what was left of the group. Only 7 remained. That night, Marcus was found in the attic, hanging by his neck, mouth full of dirt. Jenna went missing the next morning. Her bed was soaked in blood. They stopped talking, just waited, watched, and Hollow Village watched back. A warning. A child approached Claire near the well, a small girl with white eyes and a bleeding hand. They hear you, she whispered. They know the scared ones first. Claire crouched down, voice shaking. How do we stop it? The girl didn't answer. She simply lifted her hand. On her palm was a symbol, a circle with 10 lines through it. 10 to enter, 1 survives, she said. Then she walked into the well. Claire stared at Ethan. We're not getting out, she said. Not all of us. Ethan nodded grimly. But maybe one can. Midnight. As midnight approached, the remaining friends stayed together in the chapel, now boarded up and surrounded by salt from Ethan's readings. Shadows moved outside, in human shapes, tall, twisted. Brandon set up cameras. Megan sobbed in the corner. Then the candles went out. Screams followed. When the light returned, Brandon was gone. Only his camera remained, still recording. On the screen, a black hand dragging him into the ceiling. Megan went next. She just vanished mid-step. 1 second she was there. The next, her clothes crumpled to the floor like she'd been sucked from her skin. Only Claire and Ethan remainless, covered in blood. They locked eyes. One more night, Ethan said. Claire nodded. Then we fight. Part 2, The Blood Rite. One by one they fall. The sky above Hollow Village never truly darkened, nor did it brighten. Claire and Ethan stood in the chapel doorway as the unnatural twilight wrapped the buildings in colorless fog. All around them the world held its breath. 7 friends were gone, 2 remained, and one more night was coming. The journal's warning. Inside the chapel, Ethan flipped through the cursed leather-bound book he had found the night before. The journal of someone long dead, someone who had tried to survive Hollow Village once before. Most pages were smeared in blood or torn out, but a few entries remained legible. Open quote. It takes them based on fear, on guilt, on secrets. The more you hide, the faster it finds you. Close quote. Open quote. It only needs one. Only one must survive. The others feed it. Close quote. Open quote. Sunrise doesn't save you. Ritual must be broken. The offering must be rejected, but no one ever dares. Close quote. Open quote. We turned on each other. That's when it grew stronger. Close quote. Claire looked up from where she sat beside the altar, hugging her knees. So what's the plan? Ethan shut the book. We don't die. That's the plan. She laughed, a bitter, exhausted sound. That's what the others said too. The village shifts. They didn't leave the chapel. It was the only place that felt even remotely protected. Salt circles lined the floor, and iron nails had been hammered into the doors and windows. A thin line of ash ringed the altar. Still, the walls creaked like something was inside them. Just before noon, the bell in the ruined tower rang. No one touched it. The sound was deep, metallic, final. Ethan looked out the boarded window. The villagers were gathering again. They formed a circle around the well, heads bowed, arms stretched toward the ground, all chanting without words, just sound. A low moaning hum that vibrated through the earth. Claire felt her nose begin to bleed. They're starting something, Ethan whispered. Then they saw it. A shadow rising from the well. Not a person, not an animal. It had no shape, no form, just a moving void, like light itself recoiled from it. The Hollow One had awakened. The chase begins. As night fell again, though the sun never truly rose, Claire and Ethan made their move. They sprinted toward the old mayor's house, where Ethan believed the original ritual records were kept. The villagers didn't chase them, but the shadows did. Not cast by anything. Just crawling across walls, stretching up from the ground, reaching out with claw-like edges. Inside the house, they found the basement door chained shut with blackened rope. Claire hesitated. That's not normal rope. It's a ward. Old magic, Ethan said, pulling out a shard of silver he'd pocketed from the chapel offering bowl. He cut the rope with it. It screamed. Not the rope, something inside the house. They opened the door and descended. The secret below, the basement stank of death, not rot, age, as if the walls themselves remembered every life taken here. Old scrolls lined the shelves, and faded chalk diagrams covered the stone floor. At the center was a journal. The handwriting matched the one Ethan carried. It had only one entry. Open quote. They say it ends when only one remains. But that's not the truth. The truth is worse. Close quote. Open quote. The hollow one doesn't just feed on life, it feeds on betrayal. Close quote. Open quote. One must kill the other to end the right. Close quote. Claire stepped back from the page, hand trembling. So we can't just survive. One of us has to. Ethan stared at her. No. But they both knew the truth. Visions that night, the shadows came inside. The chapel wasn't safe anymore. They hid in the abandoned schoolhouse, huddled beneath old desks as wind howled through shattered windows. Then the whispers started again. But this time they weren't random. They were personal. To Claire, it was her mother's voice. You always blamed yourself for the fire. You let her die. To Ethan, it was his brother. You wanted me gone. You hated me. Now you'll see what hate brings. Claire screamed and slammed her hands to her ears. The floorboards beneath her feet pulsed. Ethan dragged her out as the ground split open, black mist spewing up like smoke from hell. They fled into the fog. But Hollow Village wasn't a place anymore. It was a maze. The buildings twisted. Doors moved. Streets ended in brick walls that hadn't been there before. They ran in circles for hours, and when they returned to the inn, someone was waiting. The false friend. It was Jenna, sitting on the front porch of the inn. Her mouth was no longer sewn shut. Her skin was flawless. Her smile was calm. Come inside, she said. It's warm. Claire nearly collapsed from shock. Jenna? You're alive? Ethan grabbed her arm. No, that's not her. Jenna stood. Don't listen to him, Claire. He'll turn on you. He'll do it when it matters most. He's already thinking about it. Claire looked at Ethan. He didn't say anything. That was almost worse than speaking. Jenna extended her hand. Only one survives, remember? Let me make it easy. Just push him into the well. It'll end. Ethan pulled Claire backward. We run. The confession inside the ruins of the general store, as shadows passed outside like vultures circling a corpse. Claire turned on Ethan. You were going to let me die. No, you hesitated back there. I was thinking about letting it happen. Silence. Then Ethan said quietly, yes. Claire froze. Ethan looked down. For a second, I thought about it, about ending it. Just one push, one scream, and it's over. I'm tired, Claire. Her lip trembled. Then she slapped him. Don't you ever think that again. He didn't answer. He just nodded. Then they cried. Together. The last ritual at dawn, if it could be called that. They reached the well. It was boiling with shadow now, bubbling, pulsing. The villagers stood in perfect silence around it. The woman in the black shawl stepped forward. The offering is nearly complete, she said. All has been prepared. She extended a long, white hand. One must enter willingly, or both shall die. Claire stepped forward. I'll go. Ethan grabbed her. No, it should be me. They argued, but their voices faded. Because the ground began to break apart, the village was collapsing. Buildings folded inward, drawn toward the well like water down a drain. Screams echoed from inside the earth, from every corner of the sky. The hollow one was emerging. It didn't have a face or limbs. It was a colossal storm of darkness and hunger, stretching into the sky like a tornado made of screams. Then the villagers began to merge with it. One by one, they walked into the well and vanished, absorbed into the mass. Claire turned to Ethan. We both go. Together. He shook his head. No. And then he pushed her. The final sacrifice. Claire fell toward the well, screaming. But something caught her. Not hands. Every moment. Every sacrifice. The hollow one paused. It hesitated. It saw not fear but love. A bond unbroken. Claire floated just above the darkness. Right. And then Ethan leapt in after her. And something shattered. The well cracked. The sky split open. And Hollow Village screamed. Morning Claire awoke alone. The village was gone. No buildings, no well, no sky, just a green hill. Blue morning. Birds chirping. She stood up, barefoot in the grass. There was no blood, no bodies. Just Ethan's journal lying beside her. The final page read, open quote, "I broke the cycle, not with betrayal, but with sacrifice. I hope she forgives me." Close quote. Claire clutched the book to her chest and walked. Epilogue, a new hollow. 1 month later, a new group of hikers vanished in a forest 2 towns over. Locals say the trail leads to a place that isn't on the map, where the trees don't move, where time stands still. Some call it Hollow Village, but others say that place was destroyed. Either way, they always return with one survivor, and their eyes are always just a little too dark. Part 3, The Final Escape, or A New Curse Begins. Claire's bare feet moved through the dewy grass. No blood, no shadows, just wind, sky, and silence. Behind her there was no village, no road, no Ethan, but the journal clutched to her chest was real, its leather warm like skin, pages trembling in the wind. Her fingers had left bloody prints on the cover, though she didn't remember bleeding. She turned in a slow circle. Where had the village gone? And more importantly, why was she still alive? The survivors return. 3 days later, Claire was found walking along Route 56, dazed, dirt-streaked, barefoot. She couldn't explain where she'd been, couldn't describe what happened. Just, they're gone, all of them. The police report was thin. The other 9 in her group were declared missing, presumed dead. The therapist they assigned her kept asking about hallucinations, trauma loops, PTSD. Claire only nodded, but at night, she dreamed of black water, of hands reaching through walls, of Ethan's final words, "Forgive me." She would wake with her heart pounding and her ears ringing with a whisper she couldn't trace. A whisper that said, "It's not over." The lingering mark. Back in her apartment, life tried to resume. But reality didn't feel the same. Mirrors showed delayed reflections. Phones rang with no one on the line. Her cat hissed at corners of the room and refused to go near the closet. And then the dreams turned to visions. One night she awoke standing in her kitchen, hands covered in dirt. She dug something out of the wall. It was the circle symbol, the same from the Hollow One's ritual, etched into the drywall behind a hanging clock. She covered it up with a towel and never touched it again. The next day, she found her reflection smiling when she wasn't. The offerings continue. Elsewhere, strange things began happening. In a nearby town, 5 hikers went missing. A woman was found whispering ancient names at the edge of a dried-up river, her eyes completely white. A boy vanished in the woods and returned 2 weeks later, speaking a language no one recognized. Claire followed the stories obsessively. Every one of them had one survivor, and every one ended the same. They said they saw a village that doesn't exist anymore. Claire's hand trembled as she read the articles. The curse hadn't ended. It had moved. The revelation. She returned to Ethan's journal, every night reading deeper. She found pages she hadn't noticed before, pages that didn't exist when he was alive. Now they were written in his handwriting. Open quote, "The Hollow One isn't a place, it's a pattern, a hunger. It plants itself in those who escape. It waits. I thought saving her would end it, but love isn't enough, not for this thing. It will try again, through her, through me, through whatever vessel it needs. The offering never ends. It only resets." Close quote. Claire slammed the book shut, and then, behind her, she heard something move, from inside her bedroom closet. The closet tack. She approached it slowly, heart pounding. The air had gone cold, breath steamed before her. She opened the door, empty, except, at the very back where there should have been wall, there was wooden paneling, rotting, blackened. She reached out and touched it. The closet stretched deeper than it should have, farther, too far. And at the end, a door, painted red. It hadn't been there before. Her fingers hovered over the doorknob, but she shut the closet instead. Not tonight. The return to Hollow, Claire knew what had to be done. She packed a bag, left a note on the table that simply read, "I have to stop it," and then she drove to where it all began, back to the countryside, to where Hollow Village once stood, except now there was a trail again, not marked, not paved, but present, as if waiting for her. She walked, and after 2 hours, there it was, Hollow Village, whole, alive, but different. The buildings were new, as if recently built. The chapel no longer crumbled. The inn had lights in the windows. Villagers moved quietly from place to place, their faces wrong in subtle ways, too smooth, too symmetrical. They saw her and smiled. "Welcome home," they said. The new host outside the chapel, the altar was prepared. Candles, black roses, a basin filled with ink-dark water. The woman in the black shawl returned. She hadn't aged. "Claire," she said softly, "you've come to accept it." Claire nodded. "No more hiding." The woman guided her to the altar. "The Hollow One was pleased with your sacrifice. It tasted love and sorrow and mercy. It has chosen you." Claire placed the journal on the altar. "I know." She took the dagger offered to her, a ceremonial blade etched with a circle and 10 lines. "What happens now?" She whispered. "You begin the next offering." The visitors arrive. 2 days later, a new group of travelers arrived. 6 this time, young, curious, eager to escape technology. Claire stood at the edge of the village, dressed in a gray shawl. She greeted them with a soft smile. "Welcome. You may stay at the inn." They looked around. "It's beautiful here," one of them said, "like something out of time." Claire nodded. Her eyes were dark, her smile hollow. The final entry that night, in the chapel attic, Claire wrote in the journal, now bound in skin and marked with the fresh symbol of the Hollow One. Open quote. "Ethan tried to stop it. I tried to escape it. But the truth is it never ends. The Hollow One is not a monster. It is hunger. And hunger must be fed. I will guide them. I will help them. And when the time comes, I will choose the survivor. Because it always needs one." Close quote. She closed the book, and the wind outside began to howl. The first scream came before midnight, and the offering began again. Epilogue, a whisper on the wind. In a distant city, a little girl draws a picture in crayon. Her teacher asks what it is. "A village," she says, "with shadows and a well." The teacher frowns. "What's it called?" The girl looks up, eyes pitch black for a moment. "Hollow," she whispers. The end.